right, Algebra 1, we are going to move on to section 7.1. I know that we are skipping around a little bit, trying to do what sections we can through online. So we are going to get into chapter 7, and we are going to be adding and subtracting polynomials today. It's going to seem like a lot of information, but remember, you can always pause to make sure that you have time to write everything down. You can always go back, rewatch. Okay, so you have plenty of time to be looking through this. All right, so first thing is a monomial. Okay, a monomial is a real number, a variable, or the product of a real number and one or more variables with a whole number exponent. All that means is a monomial might be the number 8. It might be x. It could be 3x squared. It could be 5x squared y to the third power. Okay, all of those are considered monomials. The degree of a monomial is the sum, meaning you're adding them together, of the exponents of the variables. So for instance, if I take the 5x squared y cubed, our exponents here are 2 and a 3. Okay, so this would make this a degree of 5. If I look at x alone is raised to the first power, so this would have a degree of 1. Now, the tricky one is a constant. Okay, if I have a constant, it has a degree of 0, and here is why. So say I have 8. Remember from previous sections, or the previous section, if I have x to the 0 power, that's equal to 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So if I have 8x to the 0 power, this is the same as saying 8 times 1, which is just 8. So that constant, if we look at this exponent, has a degree of 0. All right, so a couple more up here. Let's do y cubed. That would simply have a degree of 3. If I have x cubed, y to the 5th, and z squared, since these are all stuck together, they're all multiplied, I add those together. So 3 plus 5 plus 2. 3 plus 5 gives us 8, plus 2 more has a degree of 10. Okay, so that's how we tell the degree of something. All right, a polynomial. Okay, a polynomial, it's a monomial or the sum or difference of 2 or more. Okay, we call these terms. We've talked about combining like terms before. This is the same thing. Okay, so a polynomial might look like x squared plus 3x minus 4. Okay, it's just a combination. It's got this plus or minus in it. Okay, it's just like an expression. So a polynomial has at least 1, so I could say 3x squared. Okay, that's a polynomial still. I could say 5x to the 7th power minus 3x squared. Okay, all of those are each separately polynomials. So when we are looking at the degree of a polynomial, we are looking at the greatest degree of any term. So for instance, in this first one, okay, we've got 7. Remember, 7's a constant, so it has a degree of 0. Okay, we just call this a constant. For x, remember that x technically has a 1 up here, so that has a degree of 1. This is called linear. Remember, y equals mx plus b. That's a linear equation, so those are linear. If I look at this third one, I've got 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, well this 1 has a degree of 0. 2x has a degree of 1. And x squared has a degree of 2. Since 2 is the greatest degree, it would have a degree of 2. This is called a quadratic. The next one, remember, these are all stuck together, so they're being multiplied, so it's all together. So we've got our 2, and technically we have a 1 right here. So 2 plus 1 is going to give us a degree of 3. This is cubic. Okay, and then lastly, we've got this first one, 2 plus 2, we've got 4. This just has a 1 with it. This next one, this next term has a 1, and the constant has a degree of 0. So the largest is this 4. So it's got a degree of 4, and we really just call this 4th degree. Okay, the reason is because they stop after cubic, they stop giving them special names. So if it had the 5th degree or 6th degree, they just name it by those numbers: 5th degree, 6th degree, 7th degree. Okay, so up here we can name it by degree, but we can also name it by the number of terms. Okay, in this first one, there's only one term. There's no plus or minus separating anything. It's stuck together. So this has one term. This is called a monomial. In this second one, notice how there's only one plus sign. So these two are separated. This has 2 terms. This is called a binomial. This next one, we've got 2 different plus signs, so we've got 3 different terms. This is called a trinomial. And then down here, we've got a plus sign, a minus sign, and a plus sign. We've got 4 different terms here. And from there on, they just call it a polynomial. The ones that you will probably hear the most are binomial and trinomial, named specifically. All right, so we are going to look at naming each of these based on degree and number of terms. Okay, so if we look, we've got 2 terms. Okay, that one's the easier one. It's got 2 terms, so this would be a binomial. Now we have to look at our degrees. So here in the first one, we've got just a degree of 3. And remember, a constant always has a degree of 0. So it's 3rd degree, which we call cubic. In our next example, there's only one term. It's all stuck together. One term. So that makes this a monomial. Mono meaning one. It's monomial. Now here, remember, constant has a 0. This x has a 1. We add all of those together. This is also of the 3rd degree. So this is also going to be cubic. In our next example, we have 1, 2, 3 terms, which makes this a trinomial. Tri meaning 3. And let's see, this first term, we've got a 0, a 1, and a 1, so it has a degree of 2. The second one has a 0 and a 1, so that is just a degree of 1. Same with the y, it is just a degree of 1. So we go with the highest degree, so it's the 2nd degree, which makes it a quadratic. All right, now from here, we are going to get into putting these polynomials in standard form. Okay, this is writing these in descending order according to their degree. So we have to, again, look at the degrees. Now, we've got 5 different terms here. And the nice thing is that each of these only has one variable with it. So we can look at these degrees here and see that our biggest one, remember descending means going from largest to smallest, our biggest one is 6x to the 4th power, and it was positive. Okay, from there, we have negative x cubed, so minus x cubed, and then minus 3x squared, plus 7x, and then minus 5. It is written in descending order based on its degree. All right, for the next one, and remember, when we're doing these, you can pause this and give these examples a try, and then go ahead and hit play and see if you got them right. It's always good to actually practice them first. Okay, so here, our highest degree is a 3. So that is going to go first. Our negative 3x cubed plus 6x squared plus 7. And then in our last one, the biggest or largest degree is 2. So we have negative 8y squared. Make sure you don't drop those negatives. Plus 2y minus 3. All right, and then on this video, the last thing that we are going to do is simplifying by combining like terms, which we've already been doing. Okay, we've done this in the past when we have been solving linear equations. It's just a little different now because we have degrees here. Okay, so you must have the same base raised to the same power. Okay, that is very important. Same base raised to the same power. And remember, we want this in standard form. So, since our squareds are the biggest, we've got 3 of these, 3 of the x squareds over here, and we've got 1 of them over here. So we end up with 4x squared. Next, we'll go to our 1 degrees. So we have 4x plus 2x. You guys should know how to do that one. You get 6x. And then we just bring along this plus 5. And it is simplified. All right, our next one, again, our squares are our biggest ones. So we've got 4x squared minus an x squared. So I've got 4 minus 1, so I get 3x squared. I've got negative 3x plus 3x. These two end up canceling out. So I'm left with just 3x squared. And then the last one on here, our largest is our cubed. I've got 7y cubed plus 5y cubed. So 7y cubed plus 5y cubed. Now, some of you might say, oh, well, there's a y and there's a y. Remember, it has to be raised to that same power. So 7 plus 5 gives us 12, y cubed. And then we have negative 3y minus 2y, so we get a negative 5y. And then bring along that plus 7. Okay, so I am going to stop this video here. I can only record 15 minutes at a time. The next part shouldn't take very long, so you will have 2 videos for today's lesson. But it really should not take very long. We're just going to work on adding and subtracting polynomials, and you'll be good.